What if the most valuable instrument in music history wasn't made of brass or gold, but was actually a pair of human lungs that tragically betrayed their own master? I am reporting to you with a special retrospective on a monumental shift in the global cultural landscape, examining the profound absence left by the undeniable titan of American music, Sonny Rollins. For over 6 decades, the entertainment industry and global audiences recognized him as an unstoppable, elemental force of nature. He was a towering, majestic figure who could confidently step onto any stage in the world and completely bend the rigid rules of musical improvisation to his absolute will. The international press famously hailed him as the Saxophone Colossus, a living, breathing legend who seemingly possessed an infinite supply of stamina, relentless creativity, and fiery passion. But what happens to the architecture of an entire musical genre when the most brilliant improviser in recorded history suddenly and permanently loses his voice? The devastating reality that the mainstream media rarely discusses with the depth it deserves is how abruptly and tragically the music finally stopped. When this legendary artist finally stepped away from the blinding spotlight of international touring, he did not merely enter a quiet retirement. A fundamental, irreplaceable pillar of the American musical establishment essentially vanished overnight. The ensuing silence he left behind in concert halls across the globe is absolutely deafening, and it forces historians and fans alike to closely re-examine the hidden, agonizing battles he was forced to fight entirely behind closed doors. The general public often assumes that the life of a globally revered musician is a seamless parade of standing ovations and lucrative recording contracts. However, our deep dive into his extensive career reveals a much more complicated, heavily burdened existence. The story of his ultimate departure from the public eye is deeply rooted in a turbulent past filled with incredible, almost unimaginable professional and psychological pressure. As we look back at the expansive timeline of his unprecedented career, we must understand that his silence today is the direct result of decades spent pushing the absolute limits of human artistic expression. To truly comprehend the crushing weight of his current absence from the global stage, our investigative reporting must first transport you back to the terrifying, hyper-competitive cultural landscape he systematically conquered during the mid-1950s. How does a generational talent survive an industry environment so intensely competitive that a single uninspired performance could permanently destroy a carefully constructed legacy? The recording industry during that specific era was a brutal, unforgiving corporate machine that chewed up and discarded artists at an alarming rate. Sonny Rollins found himself caught directly in the crosshairs of an intense, highly publicized yet heavily unspoken rivalry with other monumental titans of the genre, most notably John Coltrane and Miles Davis. Every single time he picked up his brass instrument to perform, the notoriously harsh critics, the demanding record executives, and the highly educated audiences demanded absolute, undeniable perfection and constant, groundbreaking innovation. The psychological toll of constantly having to look over his shoulder, acutely aware that one critical misstep or creative plateau could instantly cost him his heavily contested crown, was absolutely crushing. He was not simply playing music for entertainment. He was engaged in a nightly, high-stakes war for cultural dominance in smoky, packed nightclubs where the acceptable margin for error was absolutely zero. This relentless pressure cooker environment pushed his mental and physical stamina to the absolute breaking point. The industry expected him to consistently outperform not only his legendary peers, but also his own previous masterpieces, creating a vicious cycle of impossible expectations. Right at the absolute undeniable peak of his international fame and commercial success in 1959, this brilliant artist executed a maneuver that completely shocked the entire entertainment industry. What invisible, crushing forces drive an artist at the absolute pinnacle of global stardom to completely vanish into the shadows of a New York City suspension bridge for 3 consecutive years? He abruptly walked away from lucrative international touring deals, massive magazine covers, and highly profitable recording contracts. he seemingly vanished into thin air, leaving powerful executives in a state of absolute panic and his millions of fans completely bewildered by his sudden disappearance. The truth regarding his actual whereabouts quickly morphed into a modern urban myth within the tight-knit music community. Our historical investigation confirms that he had completely retreated to the pedestrian walkway of the Williamsburg Bridge in New York City. There, suspended above the roaring, chaotic traffic and the freezing winds of the East River, he blew his saxophone into the void for up to 15 hours a day for 3 straight years. This was not a calculated public relations stunt designed to sell more records. It was a desperate, deeply necessary psychological escape from a highly toxic parasitic industry that was rapidly consuming his soul and destroying his love for the art form. He recognized that to survive the suffocating expectations of his fame, he had to completely tear down his own musical identity and painstakingly rebuild it in total, absolute isolation.
The Bridge became his private sanctuary, a massive acoustic laboratory where he could experiment without the scrutinizing gaze of critics or the financial demands of record producers. By stepping away from the spotlight, he reclaimed his artistic sovereignty. Before he ever sought refuge on the iron beams of that iconic bridge, our deep dive into his biographical history reveals that he was fighting a much darker, internal war that very nearly ended his story before his legendary status was ever truly cemented. Could the unforgiving, toxic underbelly of the mid-century entertainment industry have silently dismantled his brilliant career before the world fully recognized his genius? The early mid-century music scene was notoriously intertwined with a highly dangerous, gritty underworld. Like many of his brilliant, highly sensitive peers navigating this treacherous landscape, he became deeply entangled with severe personal demons and life-threatening coping mechanisms. He found himself relying heavily on highly dangerous illicit substances simply to physically cope with the grueling, non-stop national tour schedules and the profound emotional demands of producing such complex art night after night. It was a vicious, destructive cycle of dependency that tragically claimed the lives of countless visionary musicians of his specific generation.
However, possessing a rare, incredible level of self-awareness, he recognized that he was standing dangerously close to the edge of a fatal cliff. To avoid becoming just another tragic footnote in music history, he made a brutal, life-altering choice to completely clean up his lifestyle. He voluntarily checked himself into an intensive rehabilitation facility in order to completely rewire his biological dependencies and reclaim his mind. He fought his way back from the absolute brink of self-destruction, conquering those severe internal demons to eventually become a shining beacon of health, discipline, and unprecedented longevity within an industry famous for burning its brightest stars out young. The ultimate, deeply profound tragedy of this artist's extraordinary narrative is not found in how he lived his vibrant life, but rather in the heartbreaking manner in which he was physically forced to stop. In a devastating twist of biological irony, how does an international music empire built entirely upon the raw power of human breath slowly collapse from within? Medical reports and interviews confirm that he was diagnosed with severe pulmonary fibrosis, a relentless, incurable respiratory condition that progressively and permanently scars the delicate tissues of the lungs. The sheer irony of this specific diagnosis is absolutely heartbreaking for anyone familiar with his life's work.
This aggressive disease specifically targeted and systematically dismantled the exact biological instrument he fundamentally relied upon to create his masterful art, literally and painfully robbing him of his breath. He did not lose his fiery passion, his razor-sharp mind, or his legendary boundless creativity. He simply found himself trapped inside a rapidly deteriorating physical shell that could no longer execute the brilliant, complex melodies constantly swirling inside his head. For a musician whose entire identity and mode of communication was tethered to his ability to exhale with power and precision, this medical reality was a uniquely cruel sentence. He was forced to permanently pack away his saxophone, officially ending his live performance career, not because he had run out of ideas, but because his body simply refused to cooperate. The devastating physical toll of this illness forced a man who had successfully conquered industry pressures to finally surrender to a battle he could not outplay. Today, as we analyze the current state of the global music industry, the stark realization that this iconic maestro will never again step onto a concert stage is an incredibly heavy burden for the cultural world to carry. As the final surviving titan of this legendary golden era quietly steps away from the stage, are we simply witnessing the retirement of a musician or the definitive, irreversible end of an entire musical epoch?
His permanent departure from live performance signifies much more than just the retirement of a single, highly successful artist. It marks the definitive, undeniable closing of the greatest, most innovative chapter in recorded music history. There are no more surviving titans of his immense stature from that legendary golden era left to pass the torch to the next generation. He single-handedly redefined what it meant to be a solo instrumentalist, fearlessly taking creative risks on stage that absolutely nobody else in the industry had the technical prowess or the psychological courage to attempt. However, as we reflect on his monumental legacy and listen to his classic, fiery recordings today, a profound philosophical question remains. We are forced to ask ourselves, is the true, enduring genius of this legendary artist found strictly within the millions of rapid-fire notes he flawlessly executed throughout his career? Or is it equally found within the incredible, quiet strength it ultimately took to accept the absolute betrayal of his body and gracefully surrender to the silence? His story is a masterclass in triumph, reinvention, and ultimately, profound resilience.